I paused for a moment, pondering whether or not I thought of it as an intelligent idea. But after everything he had been through, this was truly more than his fight than mine. I will. And remember, John, you are my greatest friend. You always will be. I reply, trying to look elsewhere. The brain and the brawn. He smiles. I then hold up my claw, spreading my fingers apart, careful to make sure he only make contacts with the blunt spots. John high-fives my claw, causing Jenny to smirk at and comment on our interaction. Two peas in a pond, she acknowledges softly. Suddenly, the supports of the basement begin to snap. Chunks of the ceiling dislodge and fall to the floor, crashing all around us and dispersing dust throughout the expanse. Without further questioning, I grab both John and Jenny and run back up the stairs and into the main area of the spa, the structure only falling and coming apart even more by the second. I myself was hit multiple times in the head with debris. I get to the very edge and toss John and Jenny out what used to be the front door before the remainder of the roof collapses in on me, temporarily burying me underneath multiple tons of concrete, marble and rebar. With only a little bit of a strain, I use mostly my back to hoist all of the rubble up and off me, roaring triumphantly as I bust my way through and land between John and Jenny after lunging forward. Jesus, what have you been juicing up on? John recoils. Good you got it though. We're gonna need it. I look ahead, seeing that well over 24 agents had arrived and had been deployed, firing into the massive horde of pine runners. Their green blood sprays and spreads all around us as the bullets tear through them. Of course, some are still able to swarm and overrun a few agents, but not enough to make much difference. Give us each a gun, now! John shouts towards one of the agents, referring to him and Jenny. The agent surprisingly obliges, throwing both John and Jenny submachine firearms from his weapons belt. I hear an abrupt cry of agony, turning my head to see the orchestrator barreling out from some of the pine runners while holding his left arm, a moderate sum of blood on his claws. I would advise you to improve your aim, he grimaced, looking at John. And who might you be? Jenny grills, bashing one of the pine runners over the head with her gun before continuing to spray into the horde. New guy, huh? John asks rhetorically. Sorry about that, by the way. Just not in the best headspace. It is quite alright. The orchestrator replies without answering the questions. I shall continue the slaughter of these wretched creatures. I told you to help Arya, I said with a rather short-fused tone. Oh, believe me, I was. But the flying woman did not appreciate my efforts. She threw me back into the belly of these beasts with her cursed mind powers. In the distance, I see one of the agents inside a metallic suit of some sort, fitted to her body. She points her right arm forward at the five-headed witch, a cannon of some sort emerging. A missile then shoots out, catching the witch off guard while she has her attention focused on Arya. It explodes, sending her flying back while still hovering in the air. Although she survives the blast, turning and looking at the agent as she blasts off the ground with rocket-powered boots from the ground and flies towards her. The five-headed witch smiles and then utilizes her telekinesis to crush the woman inside her own suit. She just barely has time to scream before dying from the rapidly increasing pressure, all of her bones snapping and splitting as her limbs are broken. I can hear it, everything from her femur to her skull being crunched like fall leaves. I bash and tear my way through the horde, laying my eyes on Arya, who attempts to lunge at the witch before the grass from the ground suddenly extends upwards and wraps itself around her arms, pulling her back down. You survived the Annihilation Realm, you horrid, filthy and mindless creature, the witch insults while staring down at her. But you will not survive me. I grabbed one of the empty transport trucks and throw it with all my might at the five-headed witch, my claws leaving deep scratches on the reinforced metal as the truck is propelled through the air away from me and in her direction. With her focus elsewhere, it connects, the front of the cap smashing right into her body mass and gravity pulling both the truck and her right to the ground. They collide into the beaten-up road, asphalt and cracked pavement being sent in every direction possible. Two of the agents approach me, one of them finishing up slaughtering a few pine runners that were right behind him. I knew that wouldn't hold the witch for long. But it was enough to free Arya from her magic for the time being, which was my main objective of the action. "He's got her pinned down. Someone, blow the truck!" The one to the left shouts. The attack helicopter then fires a rocket from above. The truck of course explodes in a fiery burst of smoke and debris. The blast itself causing me to cover my ears due to the agony of the sound waves pounding away at my skull. "You know what? I'm gonna be honest, 16A. I don't know why the director wants us to kill you so much. You're not so bad," came the agent who gave the order to blow up the truck. Arya then approaches, walking up next to the agent opposite to the one who spoke. He shifts his stance and recoils, caught by horrific surprise due to the sudden presence of a Wendigo standing right next to him. "Jesus," he practically screeches. "Watch where you're going, ugly." I grab him by the collar, raising him up in order for his eyes to meet mine. His comrade doesn't seem fazed, more or less knowing the man had brought it on himself. "You will watch how you speak to her, or this alliance ends now," I grumble, bringing his face closer to mine. All right, I'm sorry, just put me down," he begs, to which I simply drop him in retaliation, making him grunt as he lands on the ground below, nearly falling over before regaining his balance at the last second. The four of us turn as the remaining rubble of the truck is catapulted into the sky. He even passed the clouds and into orbit at first glance, revealing the sizable crater below that had been left behind from the explosion. The five-headed witch reveals herself to still be alive, floating up above the rest of us and still maintaining that same sinister grin on her main head, wanting to taunt us about how futile our efforts truly were. "I was created to command all of you. Soon, you inferior beings will serve Yubel just as I have. You will find true purpose in bowing to him," she announces before a tree on the side of the road is ripped from its roots, now levitating right next to the witch. "Blindly serving others is never true purpose. You are a pawn and don't even know it," I fire back, stepping forward in front of Arya and the agents. "Silence, you horrid beast," she howls at me before telekinetically throwing the tree at the others and me. The agents open fire on her after I swing my claws upwards and slice the trunk clean in half. However, one of the larger sized branches ends up impaling the agent on the right through his chest. He of course chokes and coughs as blood flows down the branch and drips onto the ground below. Had he been one of the ones wearing the metallic suits, he surely would have survived. But the sheer speed the branch had traveled at made the more generic body armor irrelevant. Not to mention, I was sure the witch had some influence behind it. The others had survived, still pelting the witch with bullet after bullet. I ran toward her on all fours and leapt into the air, to which she countered by slamming me into the ground right in front of her, as if I were nothing more than a mere insect. She then levitates the two halves of the trunk I had sliced in half and piles them on top of me while she deals with the others. This doesn't deter me. I hoist each half of the trunk off of me without much resistance, jumping upwards and catching the witch by surprise due to grabbing her by the left bottom head, or what should have been her left foot. I repeatedly sling and bash her into the ground, first in front of me, then the left, then the right, each time applying more force and causing her to sink further into the earth. But my efforts aren't enough. After I slammed her for about the 8th time, she was able to regain her focus and use her powers to hurl me into the forest away from her. I crash and batter through the trunks of multiple trees, most of which had fallen and tumbled over onto the ground after I had smashed through them. A few were large enough to make the ground itself vibrate. I roll over on my side for several feet before piercing my claws into the dirt. They cut through grass, rock, and tree roots. After I end up getting back to my feet and looking around, I notice something rather odd. I discovered the surroundings to be somewhat unfamiliar. I hadn't ever been in this part of the forest before, making me wonder just how far the witch had thrown me. Not far in front of me is a small pond. Although it wasn't that fact alone that caught my attention. No, I spotted ripples in the water and hear something beneath the surface. Something that was trying to hide, perhaps even mask its scent. The ripples appeared as if something had seemingly broken the surface just seconds ago, entering the water extremely recently enough to be noticed. I creep my way along the ground towards the edge of the pond, looking beneath the waves and spotting who or what had been trying to cloak its presence. I slowly inch forward inside the water, feeling all sorts of weed and aquatic plants brush past my flesh as I tread in the direction of what I had laid eyes upon. I get to the exact spot from which the ripples had originated from, reaching a claw down and grabbing the source from beneath the surface, a splash accompanying the movement as I raise it above the surface. Yubel. He struggles and attempts to kick and fight his way out of my hold after I lift him from the water, tempted to squeeze while my claws are around his throat. Only the littlest bit of force and I would choke the life out of him or pierce his jugular. Either way, it was more than he deserved. "Well, you got me," he cackles. "Fucking freak. John told me how much you hate that word, but I know why you do. It perfectly describes what you are. A tall, skinny disgust." I cut him off, reaching down and stabbing one of my fingernails into his right kneecap, making him thrash under my grip even more so than before as blood flows its way down his chin. Maybe I should burn the Wendigo too. Have you watch and listen to her scream. I don't know why you care for that sack of rotting meat so much. She's a monster. As I've said, I only see one monster here. I then sling Yubel to the side. He travels for nearly 40 feet before his back slams into the trunk of a girthy oak tree, causing him to howl from what I gathered as a significant injury to his back. He coughs up a moderate pool of blood to the side while he slumps downward, unable to get to his feet without experiencing great agony. Nonetheless, he still mentally pushes past it in order to taunt me and provoke my rage. I thought I would have been long dead by now. He pauses, coughing once more. But it appears you haven't kept your promise. What happened to no hesitation? I lunge over and grab him, picking him up and slinging him over my shoulder. But he doesn't fight it as I had expected. You are a scum. Never have I come across an entity filled with more evil in nature than you. I won't be the one to carry out your breath. No, I'll leave that to Dr. John. You stole his child, burned her alive and turned her into the monstrosity that has now taken dozens of lives, enslaving cryptids like they are your pets. Cutting your throat would be far too merciful of a fate for you. With Yubel on my shoulder, I head back towards the battle. And so far, it had seemed as if we were coming out on top. The Pine Runners' numbers had been decreased significantly. Now, although the orchestrator in Arya had kept the five-headed witch distracted for the time being, she continued to display that she was far too powerful for them to fight alone. They weren't successful at dealing much damage to the witch herself, mainly getting toyed with and tossed around by her. We needed to figure out a solution soon, or we were all in grave danger. John and Jenny are still borrowing ammo from the agents as they continue to shoot and kill the remaining 100 or so of the Pine Runners, thinning them out to a pathetic number in comparison to before. But the witch, she's something completely different. She continues to tear down the agency's helicopters from the sky, smash and crush their trucks and thrust them into the air, and quite literally rip some of the agents themselves apart, either in half or something even more grotesque. I had noticed how she subtly commands most of the Pine Runners to mostly stay away from John, because I remember Yubel's words. The ones he said to John after brutally beating him in a bare-fisted battle. You're lucky I can't kill you. The remaining agents continue to focus a lot of their fire on the five-headed witch now, seen as the Pine Runners' numbers had dissipated so significantly. A group of them attempt to leap onto me while I'm carrying Yubel, but I use my claws to make quick work of them as soon as their feet leave the ground. Their mossy green blood blending in with some of the grass below before it flowed its way onto the old road. I get close enough to John, his face immediately going sour at the sight of Yubel. He grips his weapon, gritting his teeth and his veins nearly busting right through his skin. To say anger was palpable within him was an understatement. You! John snarls as I drop Yubel onto the ground. To which Yubel seems unbothered by, accepting his incoming doom, not even trying to run or fight, but I'm sure part of that was due to me manhandling him earlier on. You will all lose. None of you will ever find peace, freedom, or catharsis. Even in my death, I will rip this world from you. Yellowstone, Redwood, Wolf Lake, we're everywhere. Yubel laughs apathetically, still complaining from the pain in his back. My death means nothing. John then fires his weapon on Yubel. unloading dozens and dozens of bullets into the broken man. His beard and hair drenched in his own blood, while John yells triumphantly, "That's for Nelida," he barked before spitting on his now deceased body, kicking it as well for good measure. I barrel back into the last of the Pine Runners and assist Arya and the orchestrator with the witch, the latter of which leaps up and lands a kick, to which she responds by lifting a massive slab of earth out of the ground and burying him in it after collapsing the sides together with her powers. I pick up and throw a few corpses of the Pine Runners at her as a distraction before reaching up and grabbing her by the leg. She deflects by flying further upwards and then telekinetically smashing a collection of charred rubble into me from below. Arya runs up from behind and strikes, landing a good swipe on the witch's right thigh, but the wound heals instantly, and Arya is hurled to the left and into one of the destroyed transport trucks. The situation was quickly becoming dire. 2 more of the agents in the metallic suits attempted to step up. One got 2 swings in before being crushed inside his own suit and then used as a human battering ram against his comrade. The final helicopter fires its machine gun turrets at the witch. She wields her powers to bend them back and cause them to fire at the pilot, instantly tearing him apart and having the helicopter crash by extension. "You killed my master," she violently bellows. "You will all suffer." Once again, I notice she is still ignoring John, only further proving that she truly did need him alive and well. We all grapple and use our best efforts against the witch for several more minutes, throwing debris, lacerating her with claws, pelting her with bullets and missiles, but she either counters or shrugs it all off. Even with my newfound power, we are seemingly hopeless against her. She flies over to me in particular at full speed. I grab and shove her into the ground, making her body indent the dirt as she slides along. But she is unbothered by this, throwing me off and making me somersault backwards several times before I crash into the collapsed ruins of the spa. John comes over to my aid as he sees that I'm heavily dazed, my head tilting from side to side as I force the recovery, needing to get back to the battle as soon as possible. "Bron!" He runs over. "Are you good?" I hoist myself up, attempting to shake off all the punishment I had received. I can still fight. I feel like I have plenty of it left within me. But I can't help but wonder if this was a battle that I'd win, no matter how hard I fought. I have to keep trying. I cannot let her emerge victorious. I respond before beginning to walk back over to the chaos unfolding not far from him and I don't think you can beat her, and I don't want you to kill yourself trying. John, please. I have no other options. She will tear through everything in existence, I say after turning to make eye contact. John pauses, sighing before a frown plasters itself on his face. He's breathing heavy from all the exertion as he grips his side, a minuscule cut on his hand. "You've saved me countless times. You convinced me to get out of that hell that was working for the agency. Now, let me save you for once. You remember what Yubel said, right? He needs me alive. I'm the witch's lifeline and anchor. Without me, she can't exist. Plus, I read it in that book too." As John finishes speaking, the witch pulls one of the transport trucks forward and crushes an agent underneath it, giving him no time to scream or display any signs of terror. But I quickly realize what he's implying. At first, being unable to speak in response to what it is he was hinting at, but I soon found the words. Words that I thought I'd never have to say. Not to him. "No, John, I will not let you die. We can defeat her. We just have to try harder." John takes a few steps back, slowly shaking his head. "Not like we usually do. I've served my purpose, Bron. You're my best friend. Always will be. I can never repay you for all that you've done for me. I know that Nelida is gone. That thing isn't her and never will be. But at least, she didn't have to grow up in this ruthless world." "John?" I snarl, stepping closer as he quickly raises his gun up to his chest and pulls the trigger before I can snatch it from his grasp. "No!" I cry out loud enough to catch the attention of nearly everyone in the area. Most of them turn in their heads to see what had just taken place. John then falls to the ground, blood leaking past the material of his sweater. Some of it bubbles its way up to his mouth and dripping past his bottom lip to his chin. I grab the gun, carelessly snapping it in half before sliding my claws underneath John's body and lifting him to hold in my arms, careful not to cut his back. "John, you fool! You will not perish like this!" I yell obnoxiously. "Why would you do that?" John slowly adjusts his head and looks at me, on the verge of taking his final few breaths before putting a hand on my shoulder and smiling through the pain. He seemed oddly at peace with his death so close, so certain. Some of his blood staining my arms as I held him against me, feeling his heartbeat slow itself little by little. "The brain and the prawn." He coughs weakly before I feel his muscles go limp. He no longer moves. His chest no longer goes up and down for him to breathe as his eyes close, sealing his fate. I don't make any noise. I just stare at his corpse as Jenny runs over, speechless when she lays upon the shocking sight, her gun dropping as well as her mouth. She, like me, is unable to say anything for the time being. The witch then lets out an ear-piercing shriek from behind, causing everyone to turn their heads, everyone except me. It goes on for several seconds, changing in pitch and volume multiple times. Nothing but pure, unfiltered agony as she dies. Once her screams do stop, however, there is a loud, distorted-sounding explosion. But I still didn't look. I just keep my unmoving gaze focused on the body of my best friend. Jenny approaches closer, standing right next to me as I feel her hair touch my waist. I can hear her heartbeat slowing, her breaths growing more concentrated. I'm so sorry," she pronounces weakly, turning to look up at me as the words leave her lips. I don't respond. I just continue to stare into John's eyes. The eyes of the first human who ever showed me true kindness, compassion, or empathy. The body of a man who displayed great strength in both his intellect and his courage. I hear the orchestrator approach as well, groaning from his supposed injuries due to fighting the witch. He doesn't say anything. He just simply points his snout toward the ground, more than likely feeling as if it was not his place to comment. But I would have welcomed it, so long as it was positive. Finally, Arya arrives to join the rest of us, appearing more concerned for me than everyone else as she maintains her gaze on my eyes while I keep mine on John. But then, I hear a voice from behind. A voice I hadn't heard in over a year now. A voice that was the symbol of everything I had once left behind. A voice that I had now hated almost as much as Yubel's. A voice that I had now hated almost as much as Yubel's. Ted Bowser, the director of operations. "The threat's been exterminated. High-five yourselves, get a beer, pat yourself on the back or whatever the hell you idiots do to celebrate. I don't much care. Guess we'll just leave the bodies for the crows." I slowly place John's body on the ground and then turn and sprint toward the collection of black armored SUVs, right for the director of operations. He doesn't even get a chance to speak further before I reach inside the SUV and pull him right out, shadowing the window with my claw as I grab him by the shoulder. "You did nothing," I exclaim. "Not a single thing. You don't protect or care for this world. You never have and never will," I shout, more furious than ever before. "Because of your horrendous methods and ideals, John is dead. He stopped the witch. All you do is give others orders. The agents gave their lives and defeated the Pine Runners, while you safely sat far away watching them all die gruesome deaths, as you always have." And because I had threatened their symbol of authority, other agents raised their weapons at me. But I don't care. Not even a little bit. 16A. Ted whimpers from my squeezing of his shoulder. "Didn't think I'd ever see you again. Where'd you get the new look?" he says uneventfully, which only boils my blood even more. "You treated him terribly. You're the reason he left the safety of the facility and entered this unforgiving world," I growl, another tirade emerging. "All of this started with you and Dr. West. You care for no one. Nothing at all. Only the mission. No matter how many lives you sacrifice or innocents that die. A lot of your agents have committed plenty of horrid acts on their own, but at least they try to help. At least they weren't mindless cowards like you. You were supposed to be ours," he whines. "You were never meant to be on your own. You are our creation. You belong to us. You'll always be an artificial freak. Your friends will die all around you because of your hilarious stupidity. Humanity will never care for you, and I will laugh as they light their torches and sharpen their pitchforks once they all know of your existence. I am not your pawn, I snarl before gripping my claw on his chin and proceeding to tear his head right off his neck. One of the agents lowers his gun as the others gasp, just barely holding in vomit. I drop Ted's head. It rolls along the ground, staining the grass and stone with crimson blood. The agents cautiously step back, frightened by the gruesome execution of the director. Not that it was unexpected. I will not harm any of you, and this endless war between us can end now, I say to them. On one condition. The agent furthest to the right lowers his weapon, his hands shaking while gripping it. What? He questions, attempting to hide his haste, but I can still see his fingers shaking just in front of the trigger. You will leave Ari and I be. Forever. You will never hunt us again. You will give up your mission to kill or capture either of us. When you find a new director, you will tell him this, and if you don't, I will come back, and you all will suffer for your injustices. What you have done here is more than honorable, but it does not excuse your killing of innocent witnesses and disposing of those you deem as unfit. Don't think I haven't forgotten about the people you've slaughtered many times in the name of maintaining secrecy. Since when do you give the orders, you freak? An agent on the left speaks up. Everything in me tells me to slash his throat and be done with it, to tear him limb from limb, or smash his head into the ground. But I don't. I just turn and stare at him while baring my teeth, keeping my rage at bay despite what my instincts urge me to do. Dude, he just literally made peace with us. Are you seriously trying to antagonize him? Another grills. You're damn right I am. I don't care how much of a piece of shit the director was. He straight up murdered him in front of us. All because he's mad that he can't be on his own. Do you really think I'm gonna take orders from this thing? This freak of nature that Dr. West cooked up? I'd rather... The agent suddenly has his rant cut short by Ari coming up from behind and hitting him hard in the back of the head. He falls straight down and hit his chin on his assault rifle. Leave Braun alone, she commands after the brutal strike. Or I will feast on all of you alive. Have you forgotten what I am? I spread my fingers and let my claws gleam in the moonlight, backing up Ari's threat as I look to the other agents. But they all stand down and the others agree. I step away, giving them the mercy I had promised. I go back over and grabs John's body, looking at Jenny as he begins to stiffen in my arms, rigor mortis now setting in. We can bury him at my farm, she suggests. Ain't been there since before they took me, but I got plenty of room for him. I can even carve a stone for him if you like. I look between both Ari and Jenny, Ari slowly nodding in approval at the idea, while the orchestrator darts his eyes between the three of us. I've only known you for a short while, Braun, but you are a worthy warrior. I apologize for what I had said back at the realm, and as for your loss, I did not have a bond with this John, but I'm sure he was a fine man. A week goes by. We did end up burying John after traveling to Jenny's farm. It was much more peaceful out there. Much more open and welcoming than all the time I had spent in forests and strange sterilized buildings. John's grave was built towards the house. I had seen cemeteries many times. I had been deployed to kill plenty of cryptids residing in them during my time at the agency, so I had a basic understanding of the significance before this. I walk up, looking at the stone up and down, my claws loose. I breathe slowly as the wind picks up speed. Jonathan R. Dilliard, father and scientist. I hear Ari approaching from behind, subsequently making me shift my stance to look at her. He helped free me from them, she says, her snout pointed low. I'll remember him too, Braun. We all will, I reply softly. He deserved none of this, but he died a courageous hero, sacrificed his life so that we may live. Ari steps even closer, holding up her claw, to which I hold up mine as well, putting it against hers. She looks as if she wants to say something extremely important, but instead, replaces it with a more trivial sentence. Should we hunt for something to eat? She proposes. I pause for a moment, turning to look at John's grave once more, and then back at her. Time itself seeming to slow down. But she was right. I had grown hungry, and everything that had happened the past 2 weeks was exhausting to us all. Do you mind if I join the both of you? I heard the orchestrator call out. It's been a decent while since my last feast. Hopefully the food here on Earth is just as flavorsome. I'm coming too. Plus, ain't enough cows to slaughter at the moment. A few of them starved while I was gone. Jenny proclaims, bringing along what appeared to be a hunting rifle that had been left behind when she was taken by the Black Robe people. I know that John wouldn't want me to constantly dwell on his death and prevent myself from continuing to survive. But I knew that now, nothing was ever going to be the same without him. We did end up going on that hunt and getting a respectable collection of food to eat. I caught a male deer, beginning to devour it as soon as it was on the ground, decapitating the creature to prevent any suffering. Ari came up next to me, and together we feasted in the area of the trees, watching as the evening sun approached in the distance. But John came right back on my mind, making it more difficult for me to eat in peace. So, I got up, and just as I was about to drop down on all fours and crawl along the trees, I felt Ari's arm wrap around me from behind. Thank you, Bron, for everything. But I don't fight it. I simply stand there as I let her tighten her grip around my chest, staring off into the tree line. They will never hurt us again, I declare. Never again.